What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the JW Sports Talk Show. Welcome back to Hot Take Tuesday. Episode 6 of Season 3 is officially here. We're ready to rock and roll with another DJ Abcool is back for another episode. He's probably going to be back for a little while. I mean, we had a pretty good connection last week, and you guys enjoyed it. Over 100 views on the Hot Take Tuesday episode, so we'll take it. So why don't you introduce yourself really fast, and then we'll get into the hot takes. We have a couple today, a couple really good ones. So introduce yourself, tell them where they can find you, and then we'll get into it.
Hello everyone. So my name is DJ Abcool. My actual name is Abdul Ramirez. I'm studying sports communication here in Peoria, Illinois, Bradley University. Coming on the podcast, I just want to go over these hot takes and give statistical analysis on it, obviously. And you guys can find me in my contact info, DJ Abcool22 on Twitter and DJ Abcool on Instagram. On Twitter, I do a lot of reposts and post about a lot of football content, so you can follow me on there if you'd like. And YouTube, I also do commentating on the side, so if you'd like to see that as well, I do post about that on my Twitter. But anyways, we can move on to the Hot Take Tuesday, JDW. I know this was an interesting week, but mind bringing us our first hot take?
Yep, we got it. All right, first hot take is from SilverSabs, and his hot take is the Eagles win by 17 plus against the Bengals. So I think I think this is piping hot territory. I'm going to go right at the bottom. I think it's piping hot territory. You look at the Eagles, how they played so far this season. I mean, they've been hot and cold. They've had their good and bad weeks, but they've struggled to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, right? And if you struggle to get pressure on guys like Joe Burrow, I mean, he's going to pick you apart all day long. Joe Burrow by himself is nasty, but then you throw in guys like Jamar Chase, Higgins, Yoshi Vosh, who has actually been really fun player, really underrated, filling in for that Tyler Boyd slot receiver role really nicely. Their offense line has been better, not great, but it's enough for Burrow to get that ball out quick. And then the key is for the Bengals is to get the pressure on Jalen Hurts. Their defensive line really showed up in a big way last week, and that's the key for them for the rest of the season. If the Bengals want to make that postseason, if they want to get anywhere, they're going to have to get pressure that defensive line. Trey Hendrickson, one of the better defensive ends in the league. And, going to the Eagles, right? Let's talk about third downs. Third downs are an issue. That's one glaring thing for the Eagles. What were they? 1-12, 1-13 third downs last week? It was something like that, right?
Yeah, it was a very poor statistic there. And, the Eagles on its own, right, they have when you talk about third downs, they really have the inability to they haven't been able to move the ball as quick as they've been wanting to in drives. And, when it comes to the Eagles on its own, right, Jalen Hurts, he's been a pretty good quarterback, right? He hasn't turned over the ball as much as you say, like maybe in previous years. I think this year's been much better at kind of securing that football. And, they're number 7 in yards per run with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, that addition has been excellent for that Eagles offense to be able to get moving. But the Bengals are number 12 in stopping the run, in allowing yards per carry. So, again, the Bengals could stop the run. But when it comes to the Bengals on its own, they're 3-4 team. They kind of got unlucky in the beginning of the year, right? 0-3 to start out the year. And considering all their losses have been by, one possession or less, it's very hard for me to see a 17-point win by the Eagles, and I think I agree with you. I think this is piping hot. It's a really hot take if you want to say the Eagles are going to win by a lot in a blowout fashion, right? I think Eagles are going to have to be clicking on all cylinders, especially their takeaways. They are poor. They're number 32 in the league, dead last in takeaways. They're not really good at getting turnovers at all on defense. So I think that's just something to be aware of, that, they're not getting good at getting those turnovers. And while they are good in that rushing attack, maybe milking that clock, getting time of possession, I just think it's going to be very hard for this Eagles team to get a blowout win against this Bengals team.
Yeah, you know what? Like you said, running that football, that's not going to work to their advantage this game. You're playing Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is very capable of getting out quick, just getting that lead early. If they try and play like that, pound the football and try to choke that clock, they're playing against themselves. They're going to lose some games themselves because. And on top of that, like you said, they can't get the turnover, so they can't steal possessions efficiently. And if they can't afford to lose time. They have to get down that field and they have to keep up with Joe Burrow. Not sure if Jalen Hurts can do that. AJ Brown has been awesome as always. Devontae Smith, yeah, I mean, they've been injured. They're still coming back from injury, so it's understandable. But I mean, the Eagles are going to have to look like the Eagles of the Super Bowl year to pull something off like this, and they're not that. So piping hot, we both agreed there. So next hot take, go for it.
Oh, the next hot take is going to be the Vikings are going to make the divisional round in the playoffs. And so far, the Vikings are 5-1. Recently lost to the Detroit Lions 31-29. What are your thoughts on this hot take here, JDW?
Vikings. I mean, it's going to be hard for them not to. The NFC is
Yeah.
really tough. You do have a lot of really good teams in there, but it kind of depends. If they win the division, they're probably going to be the 1 or 2 seed. So they're going to play one of the
Yeah.
lower seeds. So they'll have a really solid chance of winning and get to the divisional round. But if they make it, if they don't win the division, they're at what, 5 or 6? They'll probably be at 5 if they don't win. But you got the Packers there too. The NFC North, like we talked about last week, is just wild. But
Yeah.
if they make it as a higher seed in the wild card, they're still going to have to go up against one of those division winners. So it's a much difficult game, whether it's the Buccaneers or the Commanders. I mean, they should be able to beat the Buccaneers or the Commanders, but it'll make it a little more difficult. Either way, they match up well against both of those teams. And then if they win the division, they'll match up well against anyone who's close to the end. I mean, the Lions look like one of the best teams in football, and they just gave them a really good run for their money. The Lions just had an insane fourth quarter performance. But I'm going to go cold. I think it's very likely. That they make division round.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think what's lower than cold, like freezing. I think I would go. I would think say a freezing. I think it's most likely to happen. I think divisional round definitely. Right from what we've seen, they've been an excellent team at just dominating other opponents. They dominated the Houston Texans, a team that was considered a super team going into this year. And I think the Minnesota Vikings, before going into this year, considering all the injuries they had, right, JJ McCarthy out for the year, we didn't expect them to be undefeated like that, going on that run that they had, right, 5 weeks in a row. But now going into the rest of their schedule, I mean, they have the Rams, the Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, right? Those are 4 games that they realistically, on paper, should win. And, the Tennessee Titans and now the Chicago Bears right after, I think that's their next tough divisional opponent, I would say, is if Caleb Williams could start getting it together from what it looks like he is, I think that could be a tough game, maybe a tough game for them. But from what I'm looking at their schedule, it's not too tough. I mean, other than the Bears, maybe, the Colts or Jaguars, the Titans can give them a run for their money. You look at the Seattle, Green Bay, right? I mean, those are just tough games. And the Lions, again, in Week 18 to finish it off. I really think the Minnesota Vikings, they have a schedule that is favorable, right? I mean, I probably see them ending up 14-3 or 13-4 if they can keep up this momentum from the start of the season. So they've done a
Right.
great job. Again, I think, Sam Darnold has done a great job at moving the football with Justin Jefferson, and a new weapon they have is Jaden Nailor, who has been 17.8 yards per catch. He's been their big play guy. He has 3 touchdowns, leads the team in yards per catch. He's been a big player outside of Justin Jefferson, who, of course, we know what Justin Jefferson is. He's an amazing athlete, a really good receiver, really great weapon for that team. Aaron Jones, with that addition, 5.2 yards per carry, number 12 in total rushing yards. So they have a really good offense, a good defense led by Brian Flores. But, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts. Any thoughts on this? Do you really think they can make that divisional round?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked one bit. But going up against the better teams, that is something to monitor. That defense, their secondary is not the best. They don't have great secondary players. They do have a really good coach and someone that knows how to put them in the right positions to play the best that they can. But when you go up against such a really potent and just really well coached and just a fine, well-oiled machine in
Mm.
the Lions offense, it's tough. I don't think there's a defense in the NFL that can go up against that Lions offense and really, really slow them down. They can run, weapons, Amon Ra. You could go down the list all day long. They have great, great players. But Vikings, man, they should be fine. They should be fine. Like you said,
Yeah.
favorable schedule. I'm really, really looking forward to that Week 18 matchup. Is it going to be for the division? Is it going to be for the 1 seed? That Week 18 matchup, I have it circled. It's going to be a great week. Great game to look forward to. So, all right, we all ready to move on to
Yeah.
the next one? Anything else to add?
Nothing else too much. I mean, only things that worry me, I would say, is probably the O-line giving up 18 sacks, bottom 5 in the league. That's something that could be worrisome. That could actually go into the argument against that take, is like the offensive line isn't that great for the Minnesota Vikings. And
Right.
probably the second thing would be giveaways. They have given up 10 giveaways, top 10 in the league. That's not a good stat to be at. So hopefully they can reduce the amount of times they're giving the ball away. But other than those two factors, I honestly think they're an amazing team. And as long as they keep the momentum going, they should be fine.
And will Sam Darnold continue to play the way he has? Will he? Or
True.
was this the precursor? Was it like the beginning of the downfall, maybe? You never know, He came out of nowhere, but now that teams have all that tape on him and tape on that offense and how that offensive line is playing, like you said, we'll see
Yeah.
how we'll see what Sam Darnold can do the rest of the season. So, all right, we're ready to move on, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next hot take is from Buffoon. Steelers collapse and go 9-8. He says he doesn't see the Steelers going to the playoffs. He sees them having that late season collapse. Remember that year they started 11-0? What was it, like 11-0,
Yeah.
12-0? And then all of a sudden they just
Yeah.
lost to like every team down the stretch and didn't even make them. Or no, I think they made the playoffs and they got smoked by the Chiefs. But the Steelers collapsing, going 9-8. Do you think that happens?
You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They started out with Justin Fields. Then they took 2 losses against the Colts and the Cowboys, right? Both being really close games, 27-24 in Indianapolis. Then you have that 20-17 loss hosting the Dallas Cowboys, which was kind of unlucky, just Dak Prescott with that final game-winning drive. I mean, so unlucky for those Steelers fans. But, now back-to-back wins with the Raiders win, right? Justin Fields. Now, you have Russell Wilson who's coming in here, and I think he's just done a fantastic job at just being able to be a quarterback that just moves the football. I mean, in that game against the New York Jets specifically, he had 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 109 passer rating. So he's just done a great job at making sure he's not turning over the football, right? Something that we sort of saw in Denver and we were kind of concerned with, like, are we going to get that old Russell Wilson? We might not, but we're going to get a version of Russell Wilson that's safe with the football, as we see, that's moving the chains, that's, being able to really get those touchdowns and put his players in positions to win. We want to see that Russell Wilson, and I think we are starting to get that with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think they could go 9-8. I mean, did they say missing the playoffs? Is that the take as well?
That's what I've written down. Let me just double check because I might have just put that down by accident. That part. Steelers collapse. Yep, and they had them missing the playoffs.
Missing the playoffs. I think they could make the playoffs. So I would say, for sake, I would say it's cool. Like, I could see them missing the playoffs, but at the same time, considering Mike Tomlin's record of not having a losing season, I think they could possibly still sneak in that playoff hunt, maybe try to make a run of their own. But, destroying the Jets the way they did, I think the Steelers have an amazing defense. They have an offense that could definitely move the ball. Yes, they're number 25 in yards per carry. You can argue that. But because of injuries, right? Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, some of them have been out in numerous games so far in the year. So I think as long as those two can stay healthy, their running game looks fantastic. Their strength of schedule, 20th, right? They do have the Washington Commanders, right? The Ravens. They do have some tough opponents. They have their own division opponents, the Browns twice. You got the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs. I mean, you do have some strong AFC opponents here. And, it's up to see what Russell Wilson could do with this offense right here. But what are your thoughts, on the Steelers? Do you think that they missed the playoffs, or do you think there's a possibility of them making it as well?
I don't see them missing the playoffs. This is too talented a football team that is coached by such a phenomenal head coach. He's not gonna let these guys collapse like they did that year. When they went 11-0, and this team is too talented to let that happen. The offensive line is getting better. They've got some weapons. Finally, George Pickens has a quarterback that knows what he's looking at and has some experience, and just say, hey, just give me a couple bucket passages. Just give me a chance to go and head top the guy a couple of times. That's what George Pickens is great at. He's not great at getting separation. He never has been. He's great at just going up and getting the football. And Russell Wilson giving him a couple chances, and look what happened. And don't forget, they have a couple more weapons all over. That Darnell Washington from Georgia, really nice tight end. Pat Freiermuth. A lot of people, when he was coming out, people were calling him Baby Gronk. I'm like, okay, but he is really good. He is really good nonetheless.
Yeah.
But I don't see them collapsing, man. They're too well coached. Russell Wilson, At first, when I first heard that Russell Wilson was starting over Fields after Fields just had like his best game, I'm like, why? This doesn't make any sense. Maybe at first I was thinking, okay, maybe they're just going to try and keep teams on their toes, and they're not really going to start Russell Wilson, just force teams to prepare for both quarterbacks instead of just one. But they ended up starting Russell Wilson, proved me wrong. And I really like how Mike Tomlin went out and he goes, that was my decision. Even though everyone was pissed and mad, he goes, that's my decision. I'm not here to just win games. I'm here to go and win a Super Bowl. I like a coach who takes accountability, and he's gonna do what he thinks is best. And he was right. Proved me wrong. But the Steelers missing the playoffs and collapsing, maybe 9-8 is plausible considering how difficult the rest of their schedule is. But if their conference record, they are 4-1 in the conference already. And they should have 2 wins against the Browns. Should. You never know, it's divisional. I say they split with the Bengals. And I say they lose to the Ravens twice. Okay. The Ravens looking like a really darn good football team, but you never know. It's a divisional game. They could very easily split.
Yeah.
Commanders, I say they beat the Commanders. The Commanders are a tough team, but I don't think the Commanders
are coming off that bye as well.
Right. So I do think that they will find a way to beat the Commanders. I don't see them missing on the playoffs. I'm going to go hot. Very well coached team. I don't think Mike Tomlin, this Steelers team, has had a losing record since he's been the head coach. The defense, way too good. Najee Harris, he's had a really nice stretch, and he hasn't looked good until this stretch. First time he's really putting a couple good games together. And maybe it's because you have a quarterback that can really move, open up the run game. We see with the Colts. When Anthony Richardson's in there and you have Jonathan Taylor, the run game is so much different. When you have a quarterback that can move, it makes it that much more difficult for the defense to stop the run. So Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, like you said, really good backs as long as they can stay healthy. So missing the playoffs, I'm going hot, man. And I don't see them missing. Good football team. And we'll see, though. One last thing I want to bring up about Russell Wilson is, it's a brand new quarterback. So, the offense is going to look a little different. There's no, there's no film. There's no tape on him in this offense. So we'll have to see how the Steelers do after a couple weeks when there's more film out in the offense. Is this offense going to slow down? Are they going to be able to evolve when that tape comes out and the defenses change up what they're doing? So I'm still going hot. It's still a really good football team. They have so many good pieces. I just don't see them missing.
Yeah, and I think the Steelers, again, like you said, I just don't see them missing the playoffs. There are years where they're like 8-8 and 1 or 9-8 and they barely miss the playoffs. But I just think this is a year where they can sneak in, get the 7th or 6th seed, and maybe even upset one team, right? I just think the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that they're that team that no one wants to face in the NFL. I feel like they're always that team that's just that chip on your shoulder. They're always going to be there, no matter what. They're a scrappy, physical team. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, they did a good job there. I'm going to go a little cool here. I could see it happening, but at the same time, I'm kind of with you there. It also could happen where they do miss or make the playoffs as well.
One last thing I want to throw in there. When you're done, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead. Finish up.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, them making the playoffs, again, it is a possibility, but I think I'm going to go cool. Just agreeing, they can miss the playoffs as well. But as you were saying.
I say if they play the Bills, they upset the Bills in round 1. I'm saying it. I'm saying it because that Bills run defense has not been good. Josh Allen, when they play really good defense, what are they going to do? Is Josh Allen's inconsistent. Sometimes playoff Bills are just a different story. When they go down stretch, they're just a different story. So going into Buffalo, that's going to be tough. But I actually think it's a decent matchup for the Steelers. You have really good defense. We'll see. Amari Cooper just had a really nice game with the Bills. Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir has a little bit of help. And they have Dalton Kincaid. They have all those weapons and Dalvin Cook. But, no, not Dalvin Cook. James Cook, their brother. I'm mixing up the brothers. I'm mixing up the Cooks. But I think they can beat the Bills if they make the playoffs. I think they can play spoiler. After that, play the Chiefs? Probably not.
Yeah, considering the fact that they had, Mason Rudolph last year when they faced the Bills, exactly wasn't the best quarterback because Mason Rudolph is normally, he's a backup, right? But you look at Russell Wilson, who was proving he could actually be a starter. I think that, with Russell Wilson, they actually would have a chance against some of these big AFC teams, but that remains to be seen. We have to see how they fare up against the Ravens, but more, though, against the Chiefs, right? Later on in that schedule, that's definitely going to be a test for them as well. As we go on further, you said you had one hot take as well, right, of your own?
Yes. So, Here we go. You guys ready to hear it? I'm going to say that Andrew Luck. Yeah, yes. I've been going down the Andrew Luck rabbit hole, man. And, it happens. Sometimes you catch one clip. Sometimes it's trending on Twitter or X out of nowhere. I know you see that sometimes. Sometimes he just
Yeah.
trends on X for no reason. Andrew Luck is the third most talented quarterback of all time. I mean, remember watching him play, dude. He was incredible.
Yeah.
Remember the horrible teams that he had around him. No offensive line, no run game. T.Y. Hilton, and once in a while when Dontre Moncrief wanted to show up, it's
Yeah.
and he brought them to the conference championship once versus the Patriots. So the flaky. I'm not getting into that part, but he brought a crappy Colts team to a conference championship. 3 years in a row. His first 3 years in the NFL went 11-5. Brought this Colts
Yeah.
into the playoffs, and each year they advanced one round further into the playoffs. And you look at the teams
Exactly.
that Peyton Manning had. Those teams were awesome. Those teams were great. Could you imagine putting Andrew Luck in those teams? What Andrew Luck would have done in that moment.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck's last year. Hold up. Let's go back a little bit before that. When he had the torn ligament in his shoulder, he threw for 35 touchdowns with the torn shoulder? How many quarterbacks can throw 35 touchdowns in a season with a healthy shoulder? And on top of that, he didn't have much around him with the torn shoulder. I could go on all day. And the year he came back from the shoulder, 1-5, that had to be one of the most exciting years of Colts football I've ever watched. That was one of my favorite years. 1-5. And, he finally gets it going. He threw 39, 40 touchdowns. And it took a rookie Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. It took those guys to stop Andrew Luck from going further in the playoffs that year. I mean, I just think that Andrew Luck is one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time. I can't rank him third of all time. Obviously, that's not fair. But talent-wise, and this is definitely one of those takes where you say if this, all could have and would have, should have been. But the third most of all time, I think he could have done it. I think he could have been the third most talent, or the third, success-wise maybe. But of course you have the Joe Montanas with 4 Super Bowls. You have, of course, Brady. The two guys that have ahead of him, Brady and Mahomes. I think he's better than Peyton. Is he better than Marino? That's another tough one. Marino, incredible. But all right, that's enough for me. I want to hear your opinion and how crazy you think I am.
You're really crazy, JDW. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But no, you're not crazy for saying that. I mean, Andrew Luck, listen, all the resilience he went through during his career, not having a good offensive line, right? Like you said, he had weapons. He had T.Y. Hilton, and, he definitely just didn't have the greatest, tools around him to succeed. And I just think even despite that, he was still able to make a conference championship against Tom Brady. So if he had all the weapons and all the tools that Peyton Manning had, you could even argue that he would have been a Super Bowl winner or would have been at least in the Super Bowl, right? But it's just really kind of, you got to feel for a man like him that all the injuries he's had, and eventually, yes, he did retire. It was not at the best point because, if he would have done in the offseason, Ballard could have tried to draft someone, a quarterback, or trade up in the draft. But what's done is done, and I would say personally, I was not a fan of when the fans booed him off the stadium. I think he did a lot for the organization, despite all the factors that played into him not doing well. Right, like he wasn't supposed to do well, and yet he did. He did. He was able to rise to the occasion, get the team into the playoffs when it looks like the team couldn't. Right, 1-5. You're telling me 1-5? He led that team to the playoffs. I mean, just excellent what he's been able to do in his career, and I'm gonna say cool there. I think like that's a pretty good take, and I could argue, I could say that's an amazing take. Like Andrew Luck is definitely a resilient quarterback, one of the most talented quarterbacks of this era, you could say, and just an underrated quarterback in general. He never truly got the props for what he was able to do during his time.
No, and let me ask you this: watching Colts football without Andrew Luck during that time, I think we'd be the equivalent to the Browns or the Raiders. You know what I mean? Because without Andrew Luck, what would we have? What would we be watching? You know what I mean? It would suck. No Andrew Luck equals no fun Colts football throughout the 2010s. It sucks. He had to go out the way he had to. A lot of other players that went out early. Barry Sanders. The 49ers linebacker, was it Patrick Willis? We lost a lot of guys. Luke Kuechly retired early. I think he was like 29 or 30. Shaq Leonard, another Colts player that just had, the sky was the limit. Injuries catch up with you, and I respect his decision. I do.
Yeah, exactly.
You have what do you have after football? Football, when you retire from football, typically you're 35, 40. Well, now if you're a quarterback, and a really good quarterback, even a decent backup. Some of them last like Ryan Fitzpatrick, or some of them last till they're like 38, 40. Unless you're Tom Brady, that's just a different story. But typically, when you retire from football, you're still young. You're still young. You know what I mean? Like in football, you're considered like a grandpa if you're 35, 40 years old. And in reality, you're young. Your life is not even halfway over yet, if you're fortunate. But Andrew Luck being the third most talented quarterback of all time. Not like ranking wise, like you know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go cool.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I think
anything else to say about? Go ahead. Yeah,
it's a good take. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you on that, but it's a good take. I think that was an amazing take. Like, just Andrew Luck, he's an amazing quarterback. And now going to the present, where the Colts have Anthony Richardson at quarterback, still developing. Injuries, kind of similar trend, right? Injuries are starting to affect him, right? He wants to get rid of that narrative. I think Anthony Richardson, he's been times where, he's want to play, but Shane Steichen has kind of kept him back, and I don't know if that's just the organization or just Shane Steichen, just, hey, protecting the players from themselves, right? You always want to do that with the players. Sometimes they feel ready, but, you got to protect them from themselves sometimes, especially with the risk that's involved if they do play. So, especially in this game, Yeah, exactly. But the difference is he didn't really have a coach that would keep him safe from himself. He would try to play and be the hero. But I think now in the present day, when you look at Anthony Richardson, he's still developing. And now it moves on to my hot take, which is where should the Colts and Vikings have gotten flexed to Sunday Night Football, right? Now, I've seen some takes that say they shouldn't have been flexed, and I think we'll just put that as a take. They shouldn't have been flexed to Sunday Night Football. Do you agree with the take like that I've seen throughout Twitter, throughout Discord, and the Colts court as well? Do you agree with that take, or do you disagree with it?
What was it? Do you remember the game that was flexed out of it?
The flex out of it, it was the Jaguars and the Eagles.
Okay, so the Colts and the Vikings, that's definitely better. But should the Colts and Vikings have been flexed to Sunday Night Football? As a Colts fan, I say, heck yeah, I don't care what people say. I want to see my team on Sunday Night Football. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Vikings are looking really good. Talked about them, already. They phenomenal. All phases of the game. Just had a tough game versus the Lions. Really tough divisional game. Colts, they're what, 4-3, right?
Yeah.
4-3. Yeah, Colts are 4-3, so the Colts are looking good as well. Who doesn't want to see Anthony Richardson play? He has that wow factor. He brings a lot of eyes to him because he can run. He likes to run people over. For the good or the better, we'll leave it at that. Likes to run people over, likes to make those big time throws and throw the ball 50 yards down the field, but can't make the you can't make the routine ones yet. We'll see. Could he do it eventually? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think this is one of those takes we're just gonna have to wait and see. Truly, I don't know how to rate it. Because sometimes you look at it in the moment and you're like, yeah, it's horrible. Or it's great, but until you get there and you watch the game, you're really not going to know. But I don't know. I kind of want to hear a little more what you think about it because, I mean, both teams are looking pretty good. I look at it as the NFL is looking at two hot football teams. I mean, the Colts have won the 4 out of their last 5. They're finding ways to win. I don't think the Colts are great. But maybe they're better than what I'm giving them credit for. They're finding ways to win. That's what a great head coach does as well. Shane Steichen, putting all his players in great positions to win and taking those field goals. If he went for it there, a couple of times and didn't get those field goals, it could have been a much different game. The Dolphins just had to kick a field goal to win the game. I mean, they were basically in field goal range, I think. They almost scored. They're like 30 yards away. And Jason Sanders, he's a solid field kicker. We were fortunate that he missed a field goal. But 4 of the last 5, both teams are hot. So I'm considering the NFL is looking at the two teams that what did you say again? The Jaguars and
The only losses? Oh, the Jaguars and the Eagles. That was the game
Jaguars
that
and the
they flexed
Eagles.
up.
So,
Yeah.
what would you rather watch? The Jaguars, the Eagles, or the Colts and the Vikings? Colts and
I would
Vikings,
rather
right?
watch the Colts and Vikings. Yeah, especially like you said, right? The Colts, especially head coach Shane Steichen, he's done a great job at being in every single game, right? Just talk about it since week one. The Colts have lost and won within one possession. They've been in every single game they've been, win or lose. And I think that's a good and a bad thing, right? Especially their wins haven't been blowouts, but at the same time, their losses, they haven't been blown out either. So it's almost like kind of just, they've kept the games close. They've really been, in dogfights every single game. And I just think those are the good teams that find ways to win. And I think Shane Steichen is starting to implement that culture with the Indianapolis Colts. Something that we did see when he was offensive coordinator in Eagles, right? The Philadelphia Eagles that year found ways to win. You'd see that continuously. And he's starting to slowly implement that culture here with the Indianapolis Colts. And the defense finding turnovers, right? You're starting to see free agent signing in Samuel Womack, the star corner, starting to show up. He's been amazing. I mean, from the San Francisco 49ers, when the Colts picked him up, I believe he hasn't allowed like a lot of receiving yards to opposing receivers, and he's been really good at just a low completion rate to opposing quarterbacks. Samuel Womack's been a star corner that has been showing up recently. So I think that the Colts, considering like you said, they're 4-3, right? They've been in every single game they've been in, and most importantly, they're about to face the Houston Texans. If they win that one too, wouldn't be surprised to see more games getting flexed to, maybe 425, or yeah, it would be 425 Eastern or 405 as well.
Yeah. More primetime games, the better. Let's put our Colts on more televised on national televised games. I'd love to see it. Sunday Night Football, I don't think there's anything much better than sitting down and getting to watch your team on Sunday Night Football. I love it.
Yeah.
Televised, everyone, everyone's watching them. That's your team and everyone's watching them. All eyes are on them right now. So it's their chance to really show up and show out. That's how you get love from the media when you play big on, the televised games because everyone's watching them. But I mean,
Exactly.
Shane Steichen, look at last year with Gardner Minshew. Look at Minshew now with the Raiders. I mean, I get it. Minshew doesn't have as good a situation over there, but we all know, look at Minshew with the Eagles when Minshew was with the Eagles a couple years ago. He didn't look good even with the Eagles team. But
Yeah.
now, Gardner Minshew just, he had Gardner Minshew looking like a good quarterback, like a decent quarterback. But Shane
Yeah.
Steichen,
Definitely.
awesome. I mean, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for a Sunday Night Football game. I'm happy it was flex. I think we have 2 Sunday Night Football games this year now because we have the Jets as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's
you
nice.
also got to talk about who's coming back too. Like DeForest Buckner,
Ah,
Jonathan Taylor.
Buckner. Yeah.
That's gonna be huge when they return, right? Those two, Jonathan Taylor in the running game, right? You have Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson in that backfield. They look dangerous. I mean, now Anthony Richardson starting to develop more and more as he goes with his footwork, and I just think Jonathan Taylor, like he said in a recent podcast in the trenches, he did say he wants to be in that backfield to help Richardson develop as a quarterback, and I think that's such wise words coming from Jonathan Taylor to be able to want to help his quarterback grow. And DeForest Buckner, right, putting in work on Twitter. You've seen him putting in that work to return. He's a good defensive tackle. When he's there and Grover Stewart, the Colts' run defense looks, right, spectacular. But right now it's looking kind of inconsistent. I just think that with both of those guys in there, it kind of solidifies that they're going to stop the run. So especially for this 5-game stretch we talked about in the previous podcast, they're going to need those two players back if they want to have a chance at winning a few of these games.
We're going to need everything we can possibly get. Texans,
Yep.
Vikings, and then you have the Jets. We'll see how the Jets are looking. They're kind of
Yeah.
teeter-tottering right now, right?
The Bills.
But then after the
The Bills
Jets,
too.
the Bills, and then is that when we play the Lions? Not looking forward to playing
Yeah.
Lions. I'm not. But
Oh, that's gonna be a tough one. Yeah.
yeah, that could be a long game to watch. But yeah, I think that's it, right? That's all we got.
Yeah, I think that's all we have so far. Again, you can find me at those socials and JDW. I mean, this was a nice talk. We got to go through some really good hot takes, and just interesting to see what's gonna come in the coming weeks. We got these takes, kind of seeing how the Eagles Bengals game is gonna work itself out, but so far, I mean, I'm excited to see the development. Right, all these quarterbacks, you're starting to see every single young quarterback show up. Bo Nix, I believe in that Thursday night game versus the Saints, he did a fantastic job. He looked really good in that Saints game, and I'm excited to see how he develops and how the rest of this rookie class and young quarterbacks start to develop in the league.
All right, so real quick, I just thought of one last take we could talk about for a few minutes quick here. Are you in a rush to get out of here? Do you have to get out of here? Do you have something to do?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I should be fine.
I think Kirk Cousins' seat is going to start heating up pretty soon.
Ooh.
Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, I know Kirk Cousins is being paid a lot of money, yeah. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr. is waiting to get a chance. You know what I mean? Kirk Cousins hasn't been that great.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of turnover-worthy plays. I mean, you look at the offense, they've struggled to push the ball downfield. And they have guys that can do it. You have Drake London. You have Mooney. Money with 2 O's. That's why I like to call it Darnell Mooney. You have Kyle Pitts. Great running game. So why can't you piggyback off that running game and make some big plays deep down the field? You know, they really struggled to complete passes 5+ yards on the field. So you think there's any chance if, you know, this keeps going the way it does? Well, what do you think about Michael Penix getting a chance?
Yeah, I think if the Falcons start going on a losing side of things, they could start him over Kirk. But for now, I think while they're still in that kind of 500 range, I think if I'm the head coach, Raheem Morris, I'm sticking with Kirk for the reason that I think Michael Penix sitting behind Kirk for at least maybe half a year to even a year, which is the main goal, is really nice because now he gets to sit behind Kirk and learn what it takes to be a starting quarterback. I think Michael Penix still needs to develop. And, you know, I think for next year, though, he could definitely be a starter. So it just kind of all depends. Maybe this year he does get chances near the end of the season. Maybe they don't end up being that good of a team with Kirk and they start Michael Penix. But I'm going to go, you know, a little warm there. I kind of feel like Kirk is going to play the rest of the year. And I don't feel like he's that bad. Like, I think he is, you know, having turnover-worthy plays. But I do feel like Michael Penix sitting behind him is more important for his development as a quarterback.
Okay, that's respectable. I also will mention one last thing. I'd rather put Penix in there while the rest of the team is good instead of throwing him to the fire next year when maybe you lose a couple of pieces and it doesn't look as good. I'm not a big fan of throwing young quarterbacks into the fire. I'd rather put him in a good situation. He's got some weapons, got a good run game. Offensive line has struggled. Kirk Cousins has been pressured a lot. Seahawks had like 3 sacks and 20 pressures somewhere around there. So not a good day for the offensive line. But if you have a quarterback that can run around, that could run around a little more, and you know, because Kirk Cousins is like Joe Flacco, man. He's got like bricks for feet. He's not making out of the building if the building's on fire. He can't move. So, I mean, Penix can move around. That could add a whole new dynamic to your offense. But yeah, I guess so. I think warm, hot is the right move for that take. But I don't know, kind of the curveball in there. I just thought of it. Just want to get your take on it. But
no, that's respectable. I can agree with that too. I think like you said, throwing Michael Penix in is a good decision too. I just think we'll see what happens, but like you said, I wouldn't be surprised either if Michael Penix gets thrown in there to see how he does in some of these games.
Yeah, we'll see. So any last words to say about any of the takes, anything you want to shout out real quick as well before we get out of here? You know, your X and your Instagram again and stuff.
You know, just Instagram, Twitter. Twitter, it should be in the bio down below, guys, but you guys can reach me out there. And, you know, it was a fun show today. Got to talk about a lot of hot takes, but exciting for the coming weeks to see how these teams develop, see what upsets happen and occur as well. But any final words from you, JDW?
That's it for me, man. I'm ready to get out of here, go do a couple things, and, you know, maybe chill out for the rest of the day before I have to go into work tonight. But hey, it is what it is. Appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you coming on. It was a good time last week. Great time this week. Feel like we got a little bit better this week. I did. Well, we both did. But yeah, appreciate you guys tuning into the JW Sports Talk Show. It was a good time talking some football, some hot takes. And that's all you got from me. So JW Sports Talk Show and DJ. Go Colts. We're out.